Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 766 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans, Donald Wine with you again in your feeds. We have recapped the win over Texas, and now we want to do a little bit of preseason content. Hang on, that doesn't really make sense, does it?
It makes perfect sense.
In any event, we are welcoming to the podcast someone who's a frequent guest last year, joined us just about monthly, and we're going to try and do that again this year. Jordan Brenner, former writer for ESPN The Magazine, former writer and editor for ESPN The Magazine, a guy notable to Duke fans because he has written extensively about the career of Jon Scheyer. I would even go so far as to say maybe friends with Jon Scheyer, Jordan, maybe. And he is the host of the Underdogs Podcast, and also the guy who sort of brought us this whole concept of bracket busters, underdogs, and all that other kind of stuff. How you doing, man?
Good. And I would never, ever, ever damn someone by associating them as being friends with me. So please apologize to John right now. Nobody wants to be known as my friend.
So our plan had been to have Jordan on prior to the Texas game so that we could really get him to do like a preview, and then we do another episode, probably in early December after some of the big games. Didn't work out that way. So Jordan, your preview of the season gets to have the flavor of the first game of the season. Go ahead and tell me, big takeaways. What have you seen so far from this team during the preseason and this first Texas game that has you excited? I want to hear, first of all, what are you looking at that you're like, damn, this Duke team is going to be good?
What if I don't think anything's good? Come on, man.
Liar. You are a liar.
Your journalism, you're supposed to ask open, neutral questions. Let me make come on.
I'm an attorney. We ask leading questions.
Yes,
so
but Jason and I are trained journalists. This is very different. Yeah, no, first of all, it's nice I'm actually like that we can talk after having seen the Tennessee exhibition and the Texas game, because sort of the thoughts I had in my head about this team, some of them have proven true, others have led to more questions. So I think this is actually a better time to talk. What do I like about this team? Well, I think everything I'm going to say about questions and whatever can be somewhat offset just by the size of this team. It almost feels like it goes without saying too often that like being tall is important in basketball. And this team over time is going to be able to make up or compensate for some of the deficiencies that presumably we'll talk about later because they're so big. So I like that. And I like the way they've, responded twice now to lackluster first halves with much better second halves. That's a good sign that you can recover in games. So I like that.
All right. So the obvious follow-up is, what don't you like? Sorry to be leading the witness that way, but
I wouldn't couch it as like or don't like. I have questions that we're going to need to answer. And I think the biggest thing, what I would say to everybody, I know this community. I know our listeners. I know Duke fans. The first thing I would say is relax. Take a deep breath. The biggest challenge this team is going to have, at least among its own fans, is going to be the fresh images of last year's team in everyone's mind. And it's human nature to say, well, they can't do this that team did, or well, Cooper would have done this, or Khan would have done that, or Malawach would have done this, or Proctor. And it's like, not only is it sort of an unfair comparison, but the most recent image in your mind of that team is the March and April version of the team, which was significantly better than what we saw from them last October and November. So if you can remember that Cooper Flagg wasn't really shooting well until winter break, right? That Khan Knippel, I read comments about why is this guy starting? Why he went through
he was like 4 of 17 from 3 to start the year, something like that.
He went through a bad shooting funk. And by the way, the year before, why was Jared McCain starting earlier in the season? Like, yes, Duke is heavily turned its program into one based on freshmen, but we have to remember that freshmen can and do improve over the course of the season. So keep in mind that this is far from a finished product, that this team will improve as a whole. It's a completely new group again. Welcome to college basketball in this era, and that the players individually will improve too. So that to me is just the most important thing to stress at the outset of any conversation about this team in November.
So after, the summer, and of course we're now a game in, this answer could change from month to month. And I'm sure for me, it would change from month to month. But when you look at this team and you look at the different attributes that this team possesses, whether it be Cam scoring, Darren Harris's, or Slim's 3-point shooting, Dame's defense, what do you think right now are the top 3 attributes that this team has that they need to kind of put forth in the first month of the season?
Yeah, I mean, the defense is ahead of the offense right now. In terms, I don't think they're going to turn people over a ton, so they're going to have to be, sort of a blocks and elbows, limit paint touches. When they get in the paint, use their size and length, and clean up the defensive glass, which they did not do last night. In fact, the second thing is, I think in time, I want this to be one of those 40% offensive rebounding teams, like the 2010 team was. It was their secret weapon the whole year, right? I'm not sure they're ever going to be great offensively. They can be good to very good, but I think a tool in the tool belt, which wasn't as big a part of the team last year or the previous year, could be offensive rebounding if they're willing to sort of sacrifice some transition defense to do that. I think that's really, really important. And, I do think they will have the spot up shooting as the season goes on, but I say that with a caveat based on sort of the biggest questions I have about this team. So I don't know if you want me to get into that now, but sort of what I'm most focused on to me, who and where are the shot creators, right? Last year we took for granted almost that Cooper Flagg could get his or something for anyone else whenever he wanted. And then when Cooper Flagg was out in the ACC tournament, we saw that Con Knipple was a hell of a pick and roll ball handler, and Tyrese Proctor as a third option handling on the pick and roll, pretty damn good. And Sion James was a very steady ball handler, and they could create offense just by beating their guy. Now they ran a beautiful offense too, half court sets, etc. But they had guys who could just break you down. Who is the break you down guy on this offense, and who's going to have the ball late in the shot clock? Who are you setting a ball screen for? I don't know who that is. Obviously, your best offensive player.
It's got to be Cam.
But Cam's not a pick and roll. He's not a pick and roll ball handler. That's not using the best of his skills. So if you're running 4 or 5 pick and rolls at times, great. But you don't want to give the ball to Cam Boozer with when the defense has played a good possession and there's 6 or 7 seconds left on the shot clock. Asking him to face up from 20 feet and create something quickly is not playing to his skill set. So who's that going to be? My hope coming into this season, based on the way he finished last year, and I had Nolan Smith in my mind, the way he sort of went through 2 years that were kind of meh, but he had physical gifts and a pedigree, was that Caleb Foster was going to emerge, and it was sort of like a Nolan Smith-esque junior season. We didn't really see that against Tennessee, or for the most part against Texas. So for me, this team's ceiling is tied directly to Caleb Foster's development.
So I'm sure we'll get back to players in a second, but I want to bounce around real quick because I think and we'll probably have you back on a little bit later in the year. But looking at these first month plus of the calendar, much has been made about the schedule, how tough it is, how many marquee matchups we do have. But there's also these games in between. We play in Western Carolina. We go on the road to Army. We have the Brotherhood run, things like that. But is there a stretch of this first portion of the calendar that you think would be the trap that you think that Duke maybe needs to look out for a little bit more than other parts of the calendar? I know the big marquee games are one thing, but is there other games out there that you kind of combine to say, hey, we need to watch out in this stretch of the year?
Like a team that could upset Duke or like
upset, give them trouble, make them have to, catch them napping, whatever you want to call it.
No, I'm not really worried about the Armies and Western Carolinas of the world and so forth. I mean, I guess, Indiana State, they're either playing a really, really, really good team or sort of a team that's several notches below. So no, I'm not really worried about those games from a win-loss perspective. And quite frankly, I'm not really worried about anything through the new year from a win-loss perspective, as long as the team's improving. Like, it's a different era, and they've clearly scheduled this way to test themselves and to be better in March. So Kansas, Florida, Arkansas, Texas Tech, if they lose 2 of those games, if they lose 3 of those games, the sky isn't falling, as long as like you can see where this team can and will get better. It may not be the result, it's the process.
I want to talk about a couple players. Have to start with Cam Boozer. And I don't want to say compare him to Cooper Flagg. I think we're going to get so much of that this year, and it's just so unfair to him. He's such a different player than Cooper Flagg. On the other hand, I think he's going to put up eye-popping stats, probably, I'll go ahead and say it, probably even better stats than Cooper did. Maybe not all the way across the board. I don't think he's going to average more assists than Cooper did. I'm not sure he's going to average as many blocks as Cooper did, or steals. But what have you seen? What has impressed you the most? What's your feeling on Cam and all the hype?
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly a man. He clearly has legit power basketball skills, and he's not just some 6'10" back to the basket. He's a it's funny is those of us who remember his dad playing, his dad didn't get to show his full range of skills when he was at Duke. He was more anchored to the post, and we saw it expand. So he's almost like more like the NBA version of his dad than the Duke version. I think we saw the aggressiveness he played with in the second half against Texas, right? And the ability to adjust from the way they were playing them was really key, right? He's going to get to the free throw line a ton all season. He can really see the floor and pass, and that's one of the ways I think that they're going to be able, or at least will try to compensate for the lack of maybe innate playmaking that last year's team had, is involving their bigs as passers. I think you have 3 above average passing big men in Cam, in Gongba, and certainly in Malik Brown. And I think they're going to try, and you saw the seeds of it last night against Tennessee. They're going to try and run through a lot of offense. That's the way they're going to be able to still play big but still spread the floor, is to use those guys as much as anything as passers. I think it's easier in some ways to game plan for Cam Boozer than it is a guy like Cooper Flagg, who had a more diverse skill set, if that makes any sense. Duke could run Cooper into the block. They did when they needed a bucket at times, but he could be a ball screen. He could be running the pick and roll, or he could be setting the screen. He could be coming off a screen. He could be on the wing. He could be up. He just played basketball. You saw Texas had a pretty good game plan for how to play Cam Boozer, and it's just going to be really interesting, right? It's a little bit different than what Duke's had in a couple years.
I mean, you want to expand on that at all? Do you think other teams are going to be able to do to him what Texas? I mean, like, let's be very clear. Cam Boozer was 3 of 12 from the field against Texas. Really, other than at the free throw line, he did very little, at least from a scoring standpoint, against them. Do you think this is going to be an ongoing problem? Because if it is,
no, I don't think he's going.
All my expectations for this team.
No, I don't think he's going to shoot 25% on the season. I think the problem is that Cam Boozer doesn't maybe have as many players around him who can make his life easier, at least at the start, who can draw defenders. So he's going to have to create a lot for himself and for them. And the thing is, like, because he's not a blow-by guy, because he's not like a, take you face up, take you off the dribble, which you can do, right? And we're in an age of basketball where you're not posting a guy up time and again because it's less efficient, but you can do more defense, send more double teams and at least sort of maybe take him out of his rhythm. The question is then, how does Duke respond? Are they that good shooting that if he draws extra defenders that way, they can move the ball quick enough and they can knock down open jump shots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
So on offense, I think we're all in agreement that the offense is going to be a little bit behind the defense. At least it will be this early part of the year as we go along. Is there a portion of the offense that you hope matures in the first month of the season that you think again, could be the difference in turning the offense into, and kind of maybe minimizing some of the deficiencies that we've seen so far?
Yeah, if someone emerges as like a primary ball handler creator, that would change the way I see the whole team. That's not who Isaiah Evans is. He has a ton of gravity. He has a quick release. He's coming off screens. You see they're trying to do some more in the mid-range, and certainly he can attack a closeout and then straight line drive, and he's got a great vertical. You saw his dunk last night. But he's not a guy who you're going to hand the ball at the top of the key and have someone come up and set a screen and say, all right, go left, go right, create, see the floor. That's not his game right now, okay? So who's that going to be? You want it to be Caleb Foster. We can get into that a little more. The other thing is I don't quite know what Nick Kamania is yet. I'm not sure if he has that. I haven't seen the guy play enough. Right now he's definitely looks like he's still figuring it out. I don't know if he has that in his bag. I don't know what the March version of Nick Kamania looks like. If he has some Knipple like, and I as much as you hate the Boozer flag comparisons, I think I hate the Kamania Knipple with weird sounding last names and similar size white guy thing even more. But I just need to see more of Nick. I don't want to. It's not even fair to opine on what he can eventually do. But yes, if I see someone who can start to break teams down late in the shot clock and or handle the ball on ball screens, that changes to me the way I see this team as a whole.
I think the other thing about the offense is so far this season, over the summer, we kind of opined that this team is going to be very good shooting the ball. And I guess in a way, thankfully, in the first, 2 preseason games and this first game of the season, we've had to learn how to win a game without shooting the ball well. That obviously is not going to be the norm throughout the season. But what about the shooting would allow, or I guess what about the offense would allow them to maybe get better shots off and maybe get a little bit of confidence earlier on in the game and not have to fight back through the shooting woes?
Well, that's it, isn't it? Like your shooting is only as good as the shots you can create. So you can have a bunch of dead eye shooters, and if they don't get space, it won't matter. So is it that eventually there's 3 or 4 40% 3-point shooters on the floor and that they learn to pump, drive, and kick, and that's the way the offense evolves? Maybe. Is it that Duke's playing off its bigs in the high post like we talked about and cutting and screening, and you saw the way that sort of opened up avenues? I think that if I had to guess, this team will eventually play less flow than we saw from last year and more sets, more, diagram. Because Jon runs some really good offensive stuff, and I think he's probably going to have to run more with this team than he did last year. The other thing is there's the potential to play a little more old school, it's so funny because it's not what Duke wants to do. Like Jon made it very clear, like the year before, we got to get after the year before where they remade their team, right? When Mark Mitchell was a non-factor as an outside shooter, and he's talking about we got to get the 5 out of the middle. We got to get him, play 5 out. And you saw that Malowich was great as a dive guy, but otherwise, they really, really spread the floor. It's harder to do that when Boozer's your 4 and either Malik or Gongba is your 5. But the flip side is this. First of all, I really like Patrick Gongba, and I think in a lot of other systems he could be a 15 and 10 guy. And I think a lot of other systems you could play through him. In a funny way, I think the more Duke plays through Gongba, the easier it's going to make life for Cam Boozer. And I think you can do a lot with him. He can attack mismatches. He can definitely score in the post. You can see he's more athletic. You can see he's developing his shooting touch. And maybe you do play a little bit more old school, high-low, screen for each other basketball. I'm just trying to think of ways to maximize the talent they have as opposed to sort of like square peg, round hole fitting it.
Jordan, one of my last questions, you kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier when you were talking about Nick Kamania. One of the things that I really thought this team, one of the hallmarks I thought we were going to see in this team was going to be the bench. That Duke would have very little drop off, I thought, as we went to the bench. That even though I didn't think the top end talent other than Cam Boozer, last year Duke had multiple lottery picks, high lottery picks on the team. I don't think that, even though I think Dame Sarr the NBA is going to be very, very interested in Dame Sarr. I don't know that, we're seeing multiple lottery picks on this current Duke team, at least in terms of their impact on college basketball. But I thought, no, it's okay. We're going to make up for that a little bit because this team is going to be so deep. Are you at all concerned, and I'm giving away that I'm maybe a little bit concerned, that honestly, through the exhibition season and through certainly that Texas game, guys 7, 8, 9, Nick Homenia, Darren Harris, and Caden Boozer, I don't know that I've seen all that much outside of sort of, I thought Homenia was supposed to be this, sublime passer. We keep on waiting for Darren Harris to have the game where he hits, 3 or 4 of 6 from 3. Caden Boozer was, great creator. He's going to be the creator for Duke. Where are the multiple assists? Are you at all worried about this?
No.
Okay, moving on.
No, but I'll explain. First of all, I already promised you I wasn't going to grade anybody on November 5th, right? I'm just not doing it. And like I said, I don't have a feel for Nick Homenia's game yet. And like I said, I'm giving you examples from the previous few seasons of guys who looked completely different in November versus February and March. So starting with McCain and Knipple, but there's a whole list. Okay. So no, I'm not worried from that sense. And we haven't mentioned Caden Boozer yet. I'm glad you brought him up, right? Because the dude was a 5-star player. And I don't think that just because he happens to have a twin brother who's a top 3 pick in the NBA draft, maybe he's that pick and roll ball handler by February, right? That's certainly not out of it certainly has experience running ball screens with our best player, right? So let's let that emerge, right? He just doesn't strike me as a guy who's going to, again, overwhelm you with his quickness. This is why I keep coming back to Caleb Foster, because he probably has the best burst of anyone on the team. But no, the 3 players you mentioned are 2 freshmen and a sophomore. As ball handlers, they're going to have to, Caden Boozer and Homenia are going to have to evolve, get comfortable with the physicality of the game, with the speed of the game. I'm sure they'll improve. Darren Harris, 4 for 6 3-point shooting is as much a function of the rest of the team as it is Darren Harris, because he's not a creator. So are they getting him open for shots or not? I think he'll knock down open shots when he gets them more often than not. So the question is, does he have another aspect to his game that we haven't seen beyond being a spot-up shooter? I don't know yet. And same thing. Can this team, as a secondary kind of way to score, if your primary way is Cam Boozer, create open jump shots for primarily Evans and Harris, but also Dame Sarr in the corner, Homenia. Foster needs to look. Dickie V and I were in tune last night, man. He was the only other one saying that, bringing up Foster at all. And he's such I don't get it. How anyone can look at this team and not see him as a linchpin. It's a flashing thing right in your face. He is their ceiling.
All right. Last question. Your phone rings. It's Jon Scheyer. Jon goes, Jordan, buddy, I got to figure out one thing. I got to figure out one thing with this team. Tell me what that one thing is. I think you've sort of said it's figure out a way to unlock CFOS, but Jon's on the other line. What are you telling him?
I have the answer to this question, because what I'm telling him is I think you have the wrong number, and I think your roll. What do we call a digital Rolodex now? I think your contact list has about 3,000 better minds than mine to answer that question. But how about this? If you could snap his fingers and fix one thing,
there we go.
Yes, we're making Caleb Foster into junior year Nolan Smith, and then this team is rolling, because if you can envision a version of this Duke team where he is comfortable running pick and roll, getting paint touches, and knocking down 35 to 40% of his 3-point shots with his ball pressure, experience now, strength, completely different animal.
I mean, we saw second half of the Texas game. We saw a lot of that from CFOS. I'd love to see a little more. That's for sure.
Yeah, I just want him to play with like full confidence. Like, let him just roll him out there for 30 minutes a night early. Don't have him looking over his shoulder. Let him play some minutes with Caden Boozer. But like, again, caveat, I'm not at practice. I'm not around these people. I don't know their personalities. We're just spitballing here. But like, to me, whatever the best way is to make him the most confident, attack-minded version of himself as possible, and that was the phrase we used to use with Nolan Smith 15 years ago, get him into attack mode. I want to see that from Caleb Foster. I believe in you, Caleb, wherever you are.
All right. Jordan Brenner of the Underdogs Podcast and a good friend of this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on, man, in a few weeks. See where things are. See if your predictions, expectations, whatever the heck you may call it, have played out or not.
I'm excited. I'm hoping they'll be in the New York area, 3 times in the next month and a half. So I'm hoping to get some in-person scouting done.
I love it. I love it. We're going to take a quick break, folks. On the other side, Donald and I look ahead to the weekend game against Western Carolina. Stick around for that. All right, Duke fans, you know what time of year it is. The countdown is on. Holiday shopping season is officially here, and Uncommon Goods takes the stress out of gifting with thousands of unique, high-quality finds you won't find anywhere else. Don't wait. The most meaningful gifts get scooped up fast, and now is the perfect time to cross names off of your list.
Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, like my acupuncture mat that I find myself using daily, Jason. From moms and dads to kids and teens, from book lovers, history buffs, and diehard football fans, to foodies, mixologists, and avid gardeners, you'll find thousands of new gift ideas that you won't find anywhere else. And when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches, so shop now before they sell out this holiday season.
Yeah, don't wait. Cross those names off your list before the rush. For you to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. That's uncommongoods.com/DukeBB for 15% off. Uncommon Goods, we're all out of the ordinary.
Fall always feels like a reset. Between back to school, busier routines, and shorter days, finding time to cook can be tough. That's where Factor can help. Their chef-prepped, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious, no matter how hectic the season gets.
Yeah, and you can choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. And for the first time, try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. For more choices and better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say that Factor helped them to live a healthier life. You can feel the difference no matter what your routine is.
So eat smart at factormeals.com/DukeBB50 off and use that code DukeBB50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code DukeBB50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Feeling stuck in your daily wellness routine? You're not alone. Our friends at Cornbread Hemp hear you. Their organic CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress or poor sleep or just needing a moment to unwind.
Yeah, Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies are made to help you feel better. They are scientifically formulated to work with your body, not against it. And they only use the very best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD.
And right now, if you want, Duke Basketball Roundup listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/DukeBB and use that code DUKEBB at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/DukeBB and use that code DukeBB to save 30% on your first order.
All right, back from the break, Jason and Donald here, and we got to look ahead a little bit. Not a full, super meaty preview coming here, Donald, because A, there's only been one game of the season so far, both from us and from our opponent. And B, let's just be very honest, Western Carolina is not a team that most would expect to really challenge the Duke Blue Devils. Do you want to do their Pomeroy, their advanced metrics and stuff like that? And then I'll get into a few players.
Yeah, well, let's start with this. Western Carolina Catamounts, they're out of the Southern Conference. And as you mentioned, Jason, they've had just the one game. They debuted on Monday. They were at Cincinnati and lost 94-63 there. And I think with this game, you want to build upon some of the things that were successful against Texas. You also want to kind of get right some of the things that we talked about that didn't go well against Texas. And after one game, especially against a nice opponent like Texas, you want to be able to get back and get some confidence to some of your players. And I think this is the big time to do it. Now, I will say this, Western Carolina, there's not a lot to read into what they're going to do over the course of the season. But I will say this against Cincinnati, and again, they're playing Cincinnati. They're 200. Western Carolina is 208th in KenPom. Cincinnati is not. So there's a huge discrepancy there. They had 22 turnovers, and what I saw was a team that couldn't turn the ball over. They were very sloppy. It wasn't just Cincinnati taking the ball away. There's a lot of unforced errors there, and when you're in Catamount Indoor Stadium, we want that, right? We're going to try and force teams into making bad decisions with the basketball. And Western Carolina did that against Cincinnati. The hope is that our defense is able to force them into taking bad shots, to making bad passes, things that we can steal. Otherwise, playing suffocating defense on the perimeter to force them into throwing the ball into a precarious position where we either take it from them or they throw it out of bounds and we can go. Now, the other thing, Jason, that we need to improve on was the rebounding. We're going to hopefully force Western Carolina to take a lot of bad shots, which comes with a lot of weird rebounds. Weird rebounds aren't necessarily good. You have to be in great position to get some of those rebounds and then be able to make the smart decision to go with one of your ball handlers that'll go forward. So I'm looking for us to kind of get back to that. We did that quite well in the preseason against UCF and even against Tennessee, a physical opponent. Western Carolina is not going to be as physical as we saw against Texas or against Tennessee. But I want to see if we get some funky rebounds. I want to see them grab those, secure them, and then be able to look up, go to our ball handlers or streakers that are going down the floor for either quick twos or, again, maybe set up, run the offense, and allow a trailer or a corner person to get a three. So those are the initial things I'm looking at. I'm not going to get too much into the metrics part of things, but just the eye test of looking at what they did against Cincinnati. Turnovers was the biggest thing I saw. There's an easy opportunity here to get the basketball and turn those into points.
All right, so remember your turnovers comment, because I'm going to get to something about Western Carolina in a moment that will play very nicely into that. First of all, you mentioned they were 208th in Pomeroy. Bart Torvik has them 301st. Evan Maya splits the difference, has them 257. The interesting thing to me about all three of those numbers is that those are actually way better than a year ago. Western Carolina was in the 330s, one of the bottom 30 or 40 teams in all of college basketball a year ago. They were 9th in the Southern Conference. This year, they're picked to finish 7th in the Southern Conference, which is, a little bit better. And again, the folks who sort of project rosters and things like that say that, this is a slightly better Western Carolina team than a year ago. I think a lot of that is because in an era of changing rosters, of maximum player movement, they actually returned several key players. They returned a lot of their roster from last year. On the Duke Basketball Duke Basketball Report, the DBR forums, there's a poster named Brevity who is just beyond great at doing previews and wrap-ups of what's happening in the world and such. Brevity posted that Western Carolina is going to return 58% of their minutes from a year ago and 55% of their scoring. That's a pretty healthy chunk. It's a team that knows how to play together, and I think one of the reasons a lot of people think they'll be better than they were a year ago is the notion that, rather than starting from scratch, frankly, Duke has been starting from scratch. This Western Carolina team starts from a pretty good knowledge base of how to play with each other. The problem that they have, Donald, is that, as I mentioned, those players weren't that good a year ago. This was a team that was ranked 330th, or in that kind of ball range, and they were horribly inefficient on offense. You talked about the turnovers this year. The turnovers were really bad last year too. Last year they almost 1 out of every 5 possessions ended in a turnover. That's really inefficient. And when they managed to get a shot off, Western Carolina, they hit less than 30% of their threes a year ago, just 46% of their twos. They also shot a lot from three-point land. Almost half their shots were taken from three-point range. So turn it over a lot, shoot and miss a ton of your threes, and have trouble hitting your twos. That's a real good formula to be one of the worst teams in college basketball.
And Jason, as we will see a lot this year, this team is not that tall. They have, I think, one guy that's 7 foot tall. There's one guy that's 6'10", but the rest of the guys are 6'8" or shorter. And I think they have a couple guys even in the 5'10", 5'11" range. So this is how do you master going after a team and playing a little bit of bully ball against them, right? This is the first instance that we have that we're able to kind of do that. And so we're going to run into this during the ACC season. We're going to run into this a lot. As tall a team as we are, we need to be able to use our size to our advantage.
Yeah, let me get into some of the players really quick that are worth noting. Their best player is probably a 6'4" wing named Cord Stansbury. He averaged about 11 points per game a year ago. He scored 23 points against Cincinnati in their opening game. It took him 19 shots to get those 23 points. He hit 4 of 9 3-pointers. This looks like a guy who's going to be gunning a lot for them, Cord Stansbury. The other guy of note in the backcourt is their point guard, Julian Sumaro, I want to say, Sumauro, something like that. Super experienced player. In his 5th year of college basketball, he played last year at East Carolina. He was mostly injured, so he missed most of the season. That's how he's got this 5th year. You talked about guys being short. He's just 5'11". Cephas, Caden Boozer, the other Duke guards are just going to tower over him. That said, he's got a fairly solid build. He's likely to be a guy who fires it up from 3 a lot. He took 8 3-pointers in their opening game on his way to scoring 13 points. You mentioned the 7-footer. Abdoulaye Fanta Kaba is his name. He's from Sierra Leone. Dude is a heck of a rim protector. I'm telling you, he has an incredible block shot rate. Last year, he only averaged 17 minutes per game. But in those 17 minutes per game, he got 1.2 blocks per game. That's a big old number. But you want to know why he only played 17 minutes per game, Donald? He is a foul machine. My man. So against Cincinnati, he gets 5 fouls. He plays just 11 minutes. 5 fouls in 11 minutes. A year ago, he averaged almost 8 fouls per 40 minutes of basketball. Abdoulaye Fanta Kaba is a walking personal foul.
At least he's efficient, right? 5 fouls in 11 minutes. You have to be trying to do that. Like that's good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. The other big man they have who's worth noting, probably their best offensive big man, is a 6'8" forward, Marcus Kell. About 12 points and 9 rebounds in their first game against Cincinnati. He's 213 pounds, not a super physical, not a super athletic kind of guy. Man, I took a look at him. I took a little bit of tape on him, and I was like, this man's going to be covering Cameron Boozer? Ooh, that is going to be a problem. Like, Cameron Boozer's a problem for probably every team in the country. Cameron Boozer's going to be a real problem, I think, for Western Carolina, unless they find some way for Fanta Kaba to stay on the court and block some shots in the post. Because otherwise, I think Cameron Boozer's just going to take Marcus Kell on the perimeter and go around him, and it's just going to be a mess for poor Western Carolina. Anything else you got on this game?
Yeah, I think the one thing, Jason, that leads me is, the fact that we have the size. I mentioned the bully ball and the fact that we should know how to punish our opponents that are smaller than us. We also need to learn, and we'll hopefully be successful at this, to be able to pass over them. And the fact that we're able to see the floor and be able to react to stuff. There was a couple of plays last night against Texas where we were able to, find some difficult passing lanes, get the ball to our guys, and then maybe kick back out to an open guy for a three. And so I think that there's an opportunity here for us to be able to pass over. And you mentioned Cam Boozer. He's going to get the ball. I expect him to get the ball quite a bit against West Carolina. And like you mentioned, there's really no one on their roster that can match up with him. But in the case they do double or triple him, and he's in the post, he'll be able to turn around and find a big Pat or find a Slim in the corner or find whoever, insert person that's sitting in the corner or on the opposite wing. That is going to be a way to get some shots. And even if they don't shoot it, the fact that we're able to get shots through the pass, I think is going to be key here. That's going to be one thing that we're going to need to improve as the season goes along. I love the assist rate. But the fact that we're able to pass over the top of some of these smaller teams means that we should be in positions where no matter what, even if we have two guys on us, we should be able to pass the ball out of that trouble and find open guys for shots.
Yeah, and lastly, I just want to mention it's been like more than 2 weeks since Duke has played a home game. The UCF game was October 21st. We're not playing Western Carolina until this weekend. It's going to be more like 3 weeks. And I think that I've been sort of waiting for a game where the team really shoots well. I think there's a decent chance we're going to get that in this game as the guys enjoy the home cooking again. Last thing I want to mention before we go is that, the advanced metric folks, they go ahead and project scores on these games just to give you a sense of what the expectation is for Duke. Ken Pomeroy says the Blue Devils should win this game by about 27 points, 90-63. Bart Torvik has it even bigger. Bart Torvik expects Duke to win this game 94-59. So if Duke doesn't win by 30, the advanced metrics may be a little disappointed in this contest. We will be back, Donald, to recap it over the weekend. Until then, he's Donald. I'm Jason, and this is the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.
Go Duke football.
Hey, you know who would really help right now? Cedric fucking Coward.
Oh, don't even get me started. This team would be so far and away number one with Cedric Coward, it wouldn't even be funny.
Yep. All right, guys.
Last night would have been ridiculous with Cedric Coward in the lineup. Halfway through, Dick Vitale would have just called the game and just went on court and just handed the trophy. Just yo, man, keep doing that.
We're winning games 90-60 all year long with Cedric Coward. I can't even talk about it. It's just so frustrating.